Get in, buckle up, and come for a ride with the Hoonatics. Cars, bikes, and anything else with an engine in it. Let's go.
A Snap-on franchise is a tool to your freedom, and we currently have franchise opportunities available across Australia. Snap-on have the best brands in the industry, a supportive network with exclusive training, as well as financing options to get you on the road. Are you ready to drive your own success? Visit snaponfranchises.com.au or call 1800 762 766 for more information.
We will definitely do a post-produced version of this one for YouTube.
Quality. Go.
Okay, today we are talking about lesser-known, quirky Holden cars, and we're not going to talk about all the sad, sooky demise of Holden, and we're not going to talk about the coronavirus and toilet paper and all that sort of stupid stuff. We have our good friends here, Colin Baker, former president of the Commodore Crazy Car Club from back in the day.
It's actually El Presidente. It's not.
He was. Yeah, he was.
It was another lifetime ago, but yeah, absolutely.
Dave, Garage of Awesome Carey here, aka Mr. Alright Street Machine, Shannon's car nerd, bit of an awesome beardy kind of dude.
Thank you very much for that, Mark.
That's not a bad intro.
Yeah, and then we've got Jason, who's just some bloke.
And then we have the one-arm bandit of Mark Boxer.
Yes.
So he's
See
obviously
the video
had
tonight on HoonTV.
a personal pleasure accident at home by himself in a quiet room somewhere that he then masks as a motorbike accident. Don't think he can sell it any other way than what it actually was.
Well, he was actually pretty quick at putting the footage up about it.
Wasn't it
Lucky
just?
I have the footage.
You know, I've got the cool record of I'm stuck in the bath. I've had an accident. I'm like, all right, I'll come around and see you. So, you know, mate, I've told you use Veet only on certain parts of your body. All right, okay, just knock it off.
This is what I have to deal with every single time I'm in here. So the reason we've gone live on this one is because we know there's a lot of Holden fans out there and people that know all sorts of quirky stories. So we might pick up on a few comments here and there, but it's cool to go live because then when people can engage with us as we're going.
Well, it's all about Holden at the moment. Everybody's talking about Holden, but we thought we would do a different podcast. So if you want to sort of give us the overview of what we're going to do with this one.
Well, I mean, we all know, like, have a pretty, like, as car nerds, we've got a pretty broad knowledge of all of the Holden, and like, I like to think that I know the difference between an FB and an FC and all those sort of things, so that, you know, if you've got that level of Holden knowledge, you're pretty good. But then it goes, like, way deeper with all of the really weird and rare prototypes and small number models, and then the oddball ones that were genuine manufactured cars that went out on the market we were talking about yesterday.
Yep.
So what we're going to do is that you and I are going to be quiet and we're going to let these guys do it all, and we're just going to throw between, and basically I'm just going to be kicking you under the table every time you
with
over.
your working appendages.
Yeah.
Okay.
No broken legs.
All right, well, let's just jump into it. Colin, open the book of love, and what's the first car you want to talk about?
Well, yeah, there was so much talk recently with the release of the ZB and about the fact that this car was a European car.
And they used that ZB name, didn't they?
They used the Commodore. But anyway, let's flick the clock back to 1978. Good times, big flares, big collars on T-shirts, and we have this absolutely amazing car dropped on our shores that didn't really work. So they had to get a bunch of GM engineers out, and they reworked the car. They threw it a trusty old 202 under the bonnet, and we ended up with the VB Commodore.
And from my memory, it was a European design vehicle, but am I right in thinking the European version was a little bit smaller than what we had?
I think the body size of the car was pretty much as it was from Europe, but Peter Hannenberger, aka Handlingberger, as they called him back in the day, was the really driving force between bringing over this European suspension that just didn't work in our climate and implementing the RTS, or Dave, the
radial tune suspension. Although, you know, the badge existed before.
It did.
Yeah, there's a GM badge that they had hiding somewhere, and they just busted out and went, what's going to work here?
Well, I think it was, you know, they worked out the HQ handle really badly. Hannenberger fixed the HQ and tried to make that not understeer, which it was better. By the time we got to the VB, we ended up with a car which could belt over the Australian terrain and really move, you know, Aussie families around.
That's the thing about this car, is it was small. The body was the same size as the German one. We got the window design as you know how, like, in the VK they had a 6-window design where they had the C pillars ended up with some extra glass.
Give the illusion of more space.
Exactly right. Well, Opel had that from the outset, and but they would couple that with the 6-cylinder as the Senator, I reckon that was. Whereas ours, the version of the VB Commodore over in Europe had a much shorter nose, and it was a 4-cylinder. So what they did is couple the 6-cylinder nose with the 4-cylinder body, and that's where we got the VB, and then updated it with the the glasshouse that was there since day one for the VK, quite late in the process too. But again, illusion of space, not actual space.
And the interesting thing about that car was the fact that the Europeans had designed it for a 6-cylinder petrol motor, and it's rocked up here, and we've gone, nah, mate, 308. Let's give it a...
Can I just throw in a stupid Jason tangent here? I'm doing his job for him, but do you think they named it VB because they really liked
Green
the
tins.
beer?
They brought out that malachite green, I think it was.
1954.
Well, if we have a good look at this lovely rendition that we've got here, which is the marketing photographs that were from this fantastic book.
Is that from Lang Lang?
I reckon, that's a Lang Lang shot, so that's up around the bowl there.
It sounds crazy. Familiarity breeds contempt, which is something about all the cars we see on our road. You know, you see a busted-ass VT with no paint and the suspension sitting like that, and you think, what a shit box. But there was a point when it was brand new and not necessarily worldwide cutting edge, but certainly Australian cutting edge. And that car there, like their minds were blown. That's got all these Mercedes-Benz kind of design motifs in the
does
seating.
Does it get any better than crushed red velvet
so
interior?
Much.
Can you go
so
back to the second page,
so
right?
much burgundy.
Because as an impressionable young guy, we all have different opinions on things, okay? And I've always thought one thing about these cars. Now, next page on. This picture is an interesting picture here, right? And I want to talk about the front end on this one because I think there was something else going on right about at this point in time as well. Yes, that was the style that was coming out of the UK, but I always thought as an impressionable teenager that had a bit of a certain Mad Max front, a sportive nose cone.
You had to drop the MM in.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Right, and when you look at that,
the Monza,
when you look at that,
front.
and Holden are probably sitting there going, "Oh right, okay, so you got the coupe, and everybody loves that car. Well, cop this, right?" And the other thing I just want to point out is the HQ Holden, from my memory, was the second best-selling model in Holden history. Right? Look how thin the A pillars
first
on
best-selling. 485,000 of those things were sold.
And the Australian public went from these big bulky A pillars to these very small A pillars because you could see more and have better windows. Holden got it right. They got that car right.
All right.
And firstly, it didn't actually really sell that well. It took a while, but once old PB jumped in the car and said, "I'm going to thrash this thing around the country on the 79 Round Australia Rally," and absolutely wiped the slate with the Peugeots and the Mazdas and all the rest of those types of cars. It got some
But
credentials.
just before we move on, there was a reason why it didn't sell really well. You're going from HZ Holden to VB Commodore. You're going from this big to this big.
Well, we almost ended up with the WB Kingswood, didn't we?
Yeah.
And there is that taxi pack sitting up
Which
there.
is the great
prototype.
segue to our next car.
Well,
So
it is indeed. I mean, I just wanted to, this was cutting edge at the time. Let's not forget about this version. Yeah, guys, tell me about that.
Yeah.
No, we'll leave that one. But yeah, it's you can keep your own
Fours
9X because this
and
shit's rare. Look,
Come on, you got to tell everyone what the engine was called. Had that real-
Starfire. It was Mark Boxer. Starfire.
Effectively a cut down 202.
And the best part of the Starfire, does anyone remember?
Taking
you
it
could
out.
use the conrods. They were A9X conrods, so
Correct.
they were strong as fuck.
Yeah. Next one, what we've got coming up is a little bit of an interesting one coming out of, the Segway is obviously a very interesting vehicle that you're about to mention, Dave.
You don't know which one it is, though, do you?
No, I do.
No. Do you? Okay. Well, I mean, I brought a pile. One thing I was going to mention is that, as I said, familiarity breeds contempt, and I'm not the world's biggest fan of like the HK Monaro. I find them they're not common because. But, obviously more people want one than have one. That's why the values are ridiculous.
Yeah.
But between my two sort of professions, I've seen plenty of them. But then when I did a bit of research for Street Machine magazine and did a history of them, I found some really interesting stuff. Now, here's a clay model. It's almost a final of the
Looks very
HK.
South African, doesn't it?
Well, it's got the square headlights, which was quite like the Opel Diplomat. But what it is what I found really fascinating is you don't realise this, but those wheel arches, like they're blistered. And they've got a chrome strip around them, certainly on the GDS. And that sort of stuff was all Oldsmobile stuff. That was Oldsmobile Toronado. That was the exact same wheel arches as the Toronado. And the guy who designed those wheel arches really early on in the piece came from Oldsmobile. And I think he might have come from Pontiac and then did the Catalina, then went back and did the Oldsmobile Toronado. The other really, really major thing about the HK is that things like the Pontiac, like the Tempest Coupe and all that sort of stuff at the time, they've got a real pronounced hip line. So the roof looks like it's been bonked on the top, bang, like that. It's a separate thing. You could almost cut it off and create a convertible. But doing that line, which is in a HK, goes straight down the C-pillar and it flows. And this one actually has a bit of a hip line, but the final
I
went
wonder
straight.
what it would have looked like as a convertible.
Well, the problem is because they did that perfectly flowing hip line, the perfectly flowing C-pillar into the hip line, it probably wouldn't have been that good.
Yep.
But there was the next generation. And in fact, the people who worked on it were surprised that they signed off on it because it was too futuristic at the time. Now, of course, it's 50 years old. We think, ugh. But that was cutting edge at the time. And I just find that fascinating. Even though so it's not a weird model. I mean, the clay does look weird to you and me.
Yeah.
But it's I think it's brilliant. And I have a newfound appreciation for him now.
To me as well, like when they went from the earlier models to the HQ, and the HQ was so bold and different to the earlier shapes, it's almost like VL to VT.
Oh, yeah.
Where when the VT came out and I first saw one, I was like, what the hell is that?
Completely different. There's
It's
no
huge.
similarity.
But then now the HQ's, that later shape is really tough in a street machine kind of way, but the other ones are more classic.
On
Yeah.
that note, and I'll just stay on the Monaros. The HQ, like Holden lost their mind when they designed that because they had this really rounded shape, and they found it. They thought they'd locked it in, and then they went to release it and thought this shape is too soft, and people aren't going to buy it. It's a bit like ladies, and so that's why. They were halfway through an update, and it's funny because you see this online occasionally. This is the HV Monaro clay, right? So it's not a finished product, and you can see here. And I don't know if you can see here, but it's got a GTRX style window line, so it's got a fast window line rather than the formal the formal roof line that the HQ had. It has hidden wipers and all this sort of stuff, and this was going to be the next model. And Phil Smood, the designer of this car, wanted it to look faster than the old HQ was, but in the meantime they shit themselves and went, we needed to straighten this up, and that's why they went with the HJ facelift and then the HX, and so it was squared up. But what they didn't realise by the time they'd done that, they're selling 400,000 of the thing, so it was a big success, thankfully. And Phil Smood said his favourite two designs are the HQ and the VT because they're a soft design, and he says that they're timeless. VT, but certainly the HQ.
All right.
Well, you can see from that HQ front was really aggressive. It's got that shark sort of mouth look about it. And the American influence that come on from the HJ, HX, HZ, where it's sort of turned into a limousine front end. And
Just before we move on to your next machine, I'd just like to add one of my favourite all-time cars, 1973 HQ Anything. Learned to drive in one. My mum had one. She will
First
be
car.
watching. Hi, Mum. How are you?
Hands up if you've had a HQ.
Wouldn't let me have
Yeah.
it because I was a naughty boy at the time. Wouldn't let me
Understood.
drive in the P's. But I can tell you, boys, that didn't stop this little black duck from getting a steering.
I think we've all got a HQ
All right,
story, Jason.
Colin, over to you. Now give us something weird.
Something weird. Well,
We need a weird car.
I think, in all the Commodore stuff that went on in the 80s, there was another player which was hiding in the back end of the market. I think he actually ended up in a bit of strife, and you might be able to give me a bit more insight into that, was our mates down at CDT, which was a good
CDT.
replication of what the HDT was. You look at their logos, they were very, very similar. This guy was playing with Geminis and with six-cylinder Commodores. Brock was playing with the obviously the VHs and VCs at the time. And we ended up with a couple of six-cylinder turbocharged cars out there in the marketplace, which were a bit different.
Yeah, James Finico, I think his name
that's
was.
the one.
Yeah, and he did have those three Geminis, the series S1, S2, S3. I think the S1 was just a dress-up pack. S2 was twin carbies, and S3 was the turbo, little blow-through or suck-through, I'm not sure. The hilarious thing is people could option these from the dealer. They're a dealer option.
Suck-through. Twin suck-through carbs.
No, sorry. There was a single carby on the turbo,
Yeah.
but a twin carby on the S2, which
Yeah.
is like the medium model. But the thing is, you'd go buy this car, and in fact, my mate had one well before I knew him, and he got defected for not having the right intake because he had twin carbies on this thing that was supplied from new with twin carbies, because this was never verified for Australian roads, unfortunately.
I did some research on CDT, knowing you guys were going to mention this. What's the rarest CDT model that they produced?
All yours.
All together now,
Okay.
the CDT Chimera, isn't it?
Do you know how many of them they made?
One, two, three.
Only three.
Wow, that's
Wheels
two
Car
more than I
Magazine,
thought.
Car of the Year.
Only three.
Family
Yeah.
2 engine, what a stunning car.
But it paved the way in America. There were obviously lots of dealer specials with their little dealer badges, and CDT just kind of went, you know what? While you guys are trying to sort stuff out, we're just going to do some special stuff. We do have a picture here, and I think it deserves an honourable mention of the Magnum Statesman.
I was just going to say, just at that point, we've just used up all of our Chimera credits for the rest of the podcast.
Yep.
Oh, I had a whole
Did I
thing about
mention it
Family
was
2 motors.
Wheels Car of the Year too, by the way?
Yeah, we all
Not
know.
to mention Julian Edgar's Project Chimera, which I got to work on. on.
Yeah.
But
jeez.
So back to the Magnum, right? I just want to quickly tell you guys a story. I was 13 years old. I was in Cessnock, and I looked up a driveway, and I could see this Statesman up there. And my uncle at the time said, "That's a Magnum Statesman." And I remember he pointed out to me. We were there on holidays for the 2 weeks. I just kept looking at this thing.
Colour-coded bars, colour-coded grill.
It was, and
Yeah.
it just such an impression. It was that first. It was the pre-Grange.
I think
It was.
Well, no.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
I
That's a
remember
good
hearing
way to describe it.
a story that Brock had taken one to Calder Park, and it was 3 seconds a lap or something like that slower than the actual race car of the time. So, here's this big QE2 size boat sliding its way around Sandown, I think it was actually, not Calder, it was Sandown Raceway, and they had this thing tuned that well that it was actually lapping quite consistent times around the racetrack. So they weren't just a good-looking car, but they were actually
Were they the same size wheelbase as a station wagon?
Yeah. It's all that Statesman series was built off the way.
WB was the first one as well to actually extend the door, so you didn't have this big fat dog leg between the door and the rear arch, which the wagons and all the Statesmans did prior to that.
We are creating an opportunity for, and I look down the camera, for someone to create a Magnum station wagon, aren't we?
Well,
all you need,
and then try and pass it off,
tributes.
then try and pass it off as being the factory.
we've
one.
seen that before.
You need the Caprice front, maybe a set of WB Ute tail lights, whack a bit of tint on the back, Group 3 spec motor, aero wheels. Bob's your uncle.
That could be a good Hoonetics transport vehicle.
What's our next weird car, Dave?
Okay.
Oh, look, I mean, I was a big fan. We were on the Kingswood side of things. The whole win on Sunday, sell on Monday thing was pretty big with Monaros and then Tiranas, obviously. I was always interested in those weird builds. And this one here, this is the Holden Ute, which is spelt EWE''T, because it has, and I believe the tub was lined in sheepskin. Possibly, or more.
So let's
New
Dave,
Zealand market.
Dave, just push pause for a second.
Yeah.
Right? Are you going to tell me? Think of like you and I are with Holden, and we're going, hey, they're doing the Alvin Purple Chargers. We've got to do something here, and they'll probably pop that into the mainstream, into the show side of things.
Well, I don't think anything was off the table, was it?
I don't reckon it was. Not back then.
No.
Well, this thing here, it went. You can see from the photo that Box is about to hold up. That is it. Because that's profesh, that's how you roll it. But that is on the turntable at Fisherman's Bend. So that was come out of their design department, where they've pulled a ute off the line and gone chuck all this stuff on it,
Just show special.
Yeah, show special. That's exactly right. It's got the polycast wheels. It was a factory 350. Now those polycast wheels didn't come on until an option.
An LE.
They were the LE, and then they were optional thereafter. I'm pretty sure, or thereabouts. Those stripes ended up being the HQ and HJ Sandman stripes.
They missed out on the ability to jump from the cabin into the back, didn't they?
Yeah, well,
do you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, absolutely with that. Although you'd be jumping out into the elements.
Because was this the same time they were built that HQ four-door with the big guards and the massive big show wheels and the stripe pack all over it? You know that thing. There it is.
308Q.
That thing there.
What a great looking car.
This was 73, and that was 70. Yeah, look at that. That was 70. I don't remember what year that was, and my notes don't tell me. But anyway, that is pretty fat, and I was going to talk about it, but we can't do Kingswood and Monaro stuff all day. One thing I did like about this ute, though, the badge on the back with the ute *T was cast, so it's a proper badge, almost like a proper model, and factory 350 turbo 400, and then then it went through the dealer network, and the guy sold it really quick, so he then optioned one up the same, and so there was two essentially. I don't know where either of them are now, but so that would have been really cool.
Yeah, or as you said, New Zealand. I know our New Zealand viewers.
Absolutely, but March 72. Sorry, so this was actually
that would have been the best.
And cars like that
were 308Q.
Cars like that were great marketing studies, and I think that's one of the things with Holden at the time was that they put that stuff into the shows, and they would gauge the reaction to it and determine whether or not they would make it to the showroom floor.
Let's get classy. What have we got next?
I was going to say, I think Colin had something in the form of a ute here.
Well, I guess, Holden concept cars, we know that in the 2000s, they really sort of stepped it up, that VT to VZ platform. They went crazy.
That was a renaissance era for concept cars, not only from Holden, but Ford, and even Toyota chucked a few out there. But let's go back on that.
Dave, I'll just pull you down. We don't use big words on this show, all right? Because Mark gets really confused quickly.
Oh, okay.
All right.
What, Deniliquin or?
No, Renaissance.
Oh, right, okay.
Deniliquin, I got a speeding fine.
That's what he gets called by his parents. You
coming back from the summit.
delinquent.
So let's get back to the Ute.
That's
So
the
let's
only
talk
time I
about
wanna go back
the
there.
Utester. The Utester. Obviously, the VU platform come out just after the VT sedan was released, and they wanted to get that car into the market and show that there was some flexibility with that vehicle. So a car which had a fold back roof, it had the extra hatchback in there, it had the really nice
It was
one
lifestyle,
piece.
wasn't it?
It was.
Lifestyle, yeah.
And it was about that whole Ute Muster type of marketplace as well. That car is a functioning vehicle, and when you see that car firsthand, it's amazing the way that the designers really went to the point of making this thing so it could get into a pre-production stage.
Yeah.
Really?
And it was cool too. It was like nicely refined as well, like the rear bumpers, all that sort of stuff. But,
Because it's got a solid rear bar. It doesn't get the bumperettes.
makes you kind of think though that the designer of it might have owned like a Nissan Exa before that or something. Like,
Well, there was a guy locally in Adelaide that actually made a copy of that rear bumper bar, and it did quite well for his business back in the day.
Yeah, right.
Which I happened to buy that business as well. But anyway, young
And you
Mr.
still-
Jason Way.
Still
free
producing
plugs,
bars.
free plugs.
Maybe give him a call down at
I
Muscle
think
Garage.
he
might be able
was
to help you
actually
out.
watching before, so
I went to
if he's
school with
not,
Jason.
then
I went to
shame
school
on
with
you.
Jace. He's always been good with the bar.
Anyway,
You just lowered the bar.
he's talking about soap.
Speaking of bars.
All right, what's next?
Give
Give me some weird.
Well, I'm going to chuck onto this one because this is one of my favourites. Always sticking on the Commodore stuff is the Manbo Ute Sandman
Bow,
panel
chicka, wow,
van.
wow.
You know what? Like when that thing came out, my brain exploded, and it hasn't really ever come back.
Was it a hot Adelaide? We seen that car locally.
Was that sorry?
Was it hot Adelaide at the Royal Showgrounds
I'm
back
not
then? Before
sure.
it was extreme horsepower.
Oh,
and,
look, I saw it at the motor show, like
Yeah.
back when we had an Adelaide.
No,
motor
that was,
show.
I reckon, Holden versus Ford. I reckon you would have seen
You
it.
could be right there
Yep.
too. Yeah.
Now, I think I know somebody that owns a Holden panel van, a late model one. Do you know?
I
who
got
owns
No,
one?
no, that
I've got
person.
one at the end of my
The
street.
purple people eater or something like
That
that.
person you're speaking of, me, doesn't own a Holden panel van. I own a whole just to get the purists out there who go, it's not a panel van.
It's not a Sandman, mate.
And well, you know what? And I say it is a Sandman only because the brochure, which I have a copy of, did I give it to you or did I get it back?
Back over there.
It was the Holden. It was the Holden Ute with the Sandman conversion by Holden by design. Sandman canopy conversion by Holden by design. And and I saw it when it came out. I saw it in Ralph magazine actually. That's right. They did a road test on it in Ralph magazine.
Ralph magazine.
And I opened the page, and I even though it was silver in the magazine, I went. Ugh. And I said to my wife at the time, I go, you know what? I reckon as a sensible everyday daily, we should get one of these. And she said, do they come in purple? And I said, as a matter of fact,
How
they
long,
do.
how long have you had yours for?
Bought a brand new 2004.
Who's the guy in Morphet Vale that's got one?
Possibly me.
You at the top of the hill?
Yeah. I'm not going to say where, but yeah, roughly around there. Yeah.
17 Green Grove Drive. Close to-
741 Evergreen Terrace, I think, you flying boxer. So when the fact that
That's the one I know.
Cosmo VY Pano for those looking.
I was going to answer Dave there by saying Dolt, but
Yeah.
But in the end, so Cosmo Purple being the hero colour at the time, so we ordered it up and grabbed it, and it's been a daily on and off ever since. It's got a few scratches, and I noticed some crazing in the bonnet the other day, so I'm like a bit triggered about the whole thing. But and
That's Mother Nature welcoming the car to her fold. But that
absolutely.
particular car, the Mambo car, obviously had a one-off mural by Reg Mombasso on
That's
the
right.
side of it.
It was mental
And-
as anything, mate.
And it was a brilliant car, but I think it harks back to the HQ with the lambswool in the tray. Holden designers were still off the chain in some respect to the the Utester and stuff like that. And when that Sandman came out, I mean, it's a masterstroke because there's that many people who lived through that era who were then starting to get a bit cashed up, who said, well, I'm going to buy the Calais with the full leather now. Holden's back. Holden's cool, but I'll buy something that suits me. That was a cool car, and it changed a lot. Just above that, I want to just talk about the car just above that on our picture frame, Mark, if we could.
The SSX.
SSX currently sitting in the South Australian Birdwood Motor Museum right now.
Now, I'll give you a strong tip. That car's actually here because we had it at our Holdens Back Home show at Peter Page last year with the TTX...
TT36
TT36, Tirana as well.
But it's sitting at Birdwood now.
It's sitting
isn't
at
it?
Birdwood now.
Yep.
Unfortunately, would you believe when they brought the car over, they couldn't start it. The fuel pump had gummed up with quality fuel that we get these days. But again, a really good example of what was going on in Salmon Street at Port Melbourne in that era. Those early 2000s where they had this wonderful platform, which was the VT, and what else can we do with this car,
They
guys?
made an electric one.
They did, and
Commodore.
that one's, I believe, at the National Motor Museum as well.
Is it?
Yeah,
It had
yeah.
the Monaro style roofline,
Yes.
and it was quite slick. Yeah, and, you know.
Let's quickly round out a couple of cars as we do this, because right next door to that is going to be the pre-VE styling Tirana.
The TT36, which from its white leather or leather-inspired interior to the really outlandish pink almost colour of the car.
The crystal moonroof was what got me, right? Because at the time, Honda Odysseys and stuff like that were offering it, and obviously the GM designers went, we're getting in on this.
And we've seen the turbo alloy tech.
Absolutely, you know, and there was a rumor at that point in time. I remember a friend of mine said to me, "There's going to be a range of turbochargers that's going to go off the market," and everyone was like, "Going, what's going on?" This came out, and everyone went, "Aha!" Little did we know it was actually the turbo
teaser.
Falcon that was coming up, right?
Okay.
But that particular car, again at Birdwood Motor Museum, you get to have a look at it and look at it closely, because all I see, I don't know about you guys, all I see is VE Commodore.
It's all over it.
Yeah,
it really
the
is.
steering wheel is, cheekily enough, actually a VE Commodore wheel. They previewed it on there, just didn't tell anybody.
Yep.
The thing that pisses me off about this, guys, whenever it pops up on social media, you get people going, "Oh, that's not a real Tirana." Yeah, okay, whatever. Oh, that's just a cruise. You know, that thing, it was fucking front engine, rear wheel drive. It had a twin turbo, TT36 3.6 litre.
So
They could-
Alotech,
the
yeah.
LS2, LS1, I think, at least fitted in there. You know, this, if Holden had built this,
Potentially
I
it
can't-
could have been an absolute brainstorm.
might not have saved them, but if they could have got a decent export market out of it as well and built it with better quality than the VE came out with, it would have been. It might have changed things for them.
Well, I can't help but thinking, lads, that we look at the Mazda, you know, CX-3, CX-5, CX-7, CX-9.
Yeah.
If they had built that also potentially like the Nullarbor and a baby Nullarbor, and then you had the Nullarbor and you had the various options, you had the V8 and the Nullarbor and the V6 turbo down there, maybe there was ways forward, but you know what? It is what it is.
Are you
Okay,
saying that?
so we're talking about Mazdas now, are we?
Yeah, no, but you know, Jason's saying that you're saying the Adventurer, which only came out in a V8 to begin with, and was too long a wheelbase and too much like a wagon that was jacked up with grey plastic shit stuck to it, wasn't good enough. Fuck me.
Well, do you know what? If we've got enough time, I'll tell you about the time I tried out for the advert for Holden, but I didn't get it, and the guy that did got hit in the face with a helicopter whilst filming that ad.
That was Gary Baxter, wasn't it?
I won't tell you. It's another story for another time.
All right, so on to
Troy Gray.
Let's
let's
wind the clock back. I think go back to the.
back.
Let's go back to the 60s and find something from there. I know there was some discussion about a one-off South Australian car. Let's
One off South Australian car.
A left-hand
well,
drive.
a car that's here now.
Left-hand drive.
Yeah.
There is the HR that was sold brand new in Hawaii. Serviceman has gone into his local GM dealer in Hawaii there and he said, how good's that Prem over there? I'm going to buy that. And he's taken it with him from Hawaii. Where did he end up next? Into Washington DC. So it's done a journey.
It still has the sticker on the bumper, his Washington DC parking permit sticker.
And then he's got transferred from Washington. Mate, tap on the shoulder, you're going back down to Australia to work at Pine Gap.
Pine Gap.
Better take me HR with me.
Little did you know you could get them here.
I distinctly remember, guys. I distinctly remember an EH Holden in Hawaii.
Yeah.
There's quite a few models that made their way over there, and Holden at that time weren't adverse to thinking they were that good that they could conquer the world.
I think they sold a really sufficient number of, what do they call them, CKDs, or completely knocked down kits as well that would move around the world. So not just complete cars, but as in knockdown versions.
Yeah.
Much like what we got with the Geminis.
Yeah, I mean Hawaii. Oh yeah, they were sort of CKD. Hawaii, that would have been a full export. And the fellow who's got that HR has got a board with all the information. It rates in like the hundreds, and because Hawaii is just like a rust machine. I mean,
it's in exceptional condition.
This may be
car.
the only one. It's got 40,000 miles on it.
This
I
has
love
been
it.
a really interesting discussion because I can't help but think how things would have changed if Hawaii got the Sandman. You know?
They really should have. That and rust treatment. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Rust.
They need the winds rust treatment.
You know?
No, what the little electronic things, electronic rust prevention.
Oh, the dooflicky. Yeah,
that's the technical name for them.
Fish oil, everything.
That
Fish
fella's
oil.
HR was like inspiration for me to go and source a Gemini left-hand drive from the States and import it into Australia.
So now you've just used up all the Gemini credits in this conversation.
I got plenty
there's more
more
Gemini
Gemini
stuff to come.
Plenty more Gemini stuff to come, mate.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's go. Come on, next one. Let's bring up. We've gone right-hand drive into HR. What have we got? Let's go.
Well, I guess if we stick with the left-hand, right-hand drive stuff, we know, again, moving back into that 2000s era, Holden really went quite big with pushing towards the Saudi market, and I think Dave's got a great little brochure there from
here for
Brazil.
the Brazilian market, Opel Omega, Chevy Omega. So,
And-
let me just read this out to you. It's Figure de por dentro.
Yeah.
Please translate.
No idea.
You can fit tacos in the center console.
I could put the door del Bolacom. Yeah. Please.
Don't insult me like that.
I was working at the Holden plant at the time when these cars were released, and it went absolutely crazy. The buzz on the workshop floor and everything else that was going on. Suddenly we had.
It's got a factory Chev badge on the front of it.
You know that's good for an extra 15 kilowatts.
Look at it. They're actually on there.
If you read the horsepower
this
rating,
one as well.
that one actually makes more power than what we've seen here.
Can we just bring truth to the rumour that people were actually sacked from the Holden factory for stealing Chev badges when they...
Yes. No, there is no denying that fact. And I could digress on quite a bit of that conversation, but we've seen the Saudi Arabian police cars that were built. They had vinyl sort of seats. They had rubber mats. They had points on the back floor where they actually could. There has like a bit of chain coming through
But
it.
do they arrest anybody in Saudi Arabia? Don't they just like
Drive over
deal
them.
with them on the spot?
Chuck them on the back of a camel. I don't know, mate. I've never
You know
been
what I mean?
fortunate to
That would have
go
been better
far.
with utes, wouldn't they? Because they could have put
Slam them in the back.
correct.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
What I
I
mean?
think what they do is usually just have them stand next to the car and just slide along the sandy ground and just lift their feet up gradually. Have you seen them when they do that?
It's just like the tyre changing competition.
Anyway, we digress.
But there is
Colin, when were you at the factory?
I was at the factory from start of VR through to the VZ era.
Oh, right, yeah.
Okay, newbie.
Settle down.
I was doing the doors on VPs.
Well, there you go. So I walked in just after VP. So
And then quality control said that guy's got to go.
you got to go, mate. Spend too much time in
He's
the
like
main
in there
canteen.
drawing Mopar symbols inside the doors.
I spent a little bit of time in Holden by design, and in that I got these left-hand drive cars. I went out to the lot where they were baking in the South Australian sun for the last few days. I got in, I turned on the aircon really quickly, like, and then stuck it in reverse, backed it up, and then took it through a car wash, and then that's what we did. And I did that 5,000 times a day. And out of the hundreds of cars I moved, I got into 2 manuals, and it blew my mind because I just suddenly forgot how to drive. I literally got in with like,
That's 6.
Still feeling
that's
hot,
reverse.
feeling hot.
So yeah,
Mate, didn't you ever play Daytona?
yeah, but that was only a 4-speed in Daytona, and no reverse.
But there is actually one of these Saudi Arabian police cars in South Australia, which is owned by the Chev Owners Association, I believe. Well, that was donated to them from Holden, and it does do the rounds. It pops up every now and then.
It's got all the stuff too.
Yeah, it
It's
has.
got like the board behind, the clear board, so the criminals can't beat up the police and you name it. Yeah.
Well, I think hats off to Holden for having a crack at the left-hand drive market the way they
Absolutely.
did. They did it seamlessly. They had very, very interesting dash arrangements. They weren't easy to replicate from left to right. They weren't,
Well, the
utilitarian.
investment in the plant itself, and I was working in plastics at the time, and we actually brought in this massive machine just to make the crash pads for the VT to VZ series, and part of that investment was the fact that there was left and right-hand drive combinations going through.
That's why the VY, VZ ended up being symmetrical inside at least, which I sort of preferred. But yeah, that whole gloopy sort of shape went that way,
Big
and then
teardrop.
on the left-hand drive it went that way. So.
Can I segue us
Please.
to the next car? And the reason I'm going to segue the car to the next car from left-hand drive is because this vehicle's probably greatest claim to fame, which was the VL series. It was actually in its racing guise at Le Mans. Is that right? Not Le Mans. Overseas with Peter
Spa, 24 hours.
So in the world of left-hand drives, in right-hand drive form, from a car from Australia, and it was the mighty VL Commodore across the range. I think that vehicle, it looked very unique when it was produced, and it has developed probably one of the most ridiculous cult followings that we've seen of any Holden model. And I mean, you look at the 2 examples we have in front of us now. Guys,
Tough
please
era.
explain.
I mean, you look at the I guess the top one that we've got there is traditional the VL Group A Plus pack, which was Brock's ultimately the
Hey guys,
Touching.
so what does plus pack mean?
well.
Funny you should ask.
Funny you should ask. No,
Let's
plus
not talk about polarizers.
Oh,
right?
it's a polarizing conversation. You jumped in too quick there, but the VL Group A, as it was, you could buy one version, the red one, off of the showroom floor, and if you wanted the plus pack, which had all the goody stuff that Brock wanted to throw onto them, with crystals and paper
crystals.
clips and magnets and stuff like that, they've got the plus pack sticker, and they've got the aerial sticker on the back window, which was terribly complicated to build at the time. Now, Brock had taken that car with his arch nemesis at the time, Alan Moffat, to Europe and to run the car over there at the 24-hour events. In the meantime, while he's disappeared overseas, a bunch of Holden guys had come through the HDT factory and said, well, you're losing your mind and we're going to take some of this stuff with us, including that new fuel-injected motor, which is sitting over there that Larry Perkins was developing at the time.
Ooh, Skunk Works.
Yeah, which leads us into suddenly a relationship that happens with a Scottish bloke that runs his own Jaguar team and what have you, and ended up sending a VL to England, goes into the wind tunnel at the university.
Was it Mira?
Mira. Drag coefficient of 0.32 or something crazy like
laughable,
that.
but yes.
Not as good as a Calibra, boys.
Yeah,
and
I know, it's on the cards.
Evidently, after Bathurst 1990, I'm 16-year-old walking past Metro Holden, I think, on Port Road on my way to heaven. And as we did back in the day, for those that don't know, it was an Adelaide place to be.
Nightclub.
I happened to walk past this car sitting in the showroom.
Fell
There's this
asleep there.
Vl Walkinshaw Group A, and I said to my mates in a slightly inebriated state, I'm going to own that car one day.
And you did.
Did you own that car?
I owned that exact car. I went
Bullshit.
back there, I reckon it would have been 4 years later. It was after Mark and myself had been down at the street.
Was that because it was still for sale and they hadn't sold it?
It was actually one of those cars that sat there for 2 years.
Like the LFA in the city?
Yeah. But eventually it had been sold and it was a drag racer's car. It was slightly molested. I'd finished at the Street Machine Show and Shine at Paynham Oval. I think Mark had his VH wagon down there on display with us on the day. Got a phone call from a guy that had bumped into us at the show. Hey, I've got this car here. Come and have a look at it. I threw my son at the time, who was probably...
Your son, he's no longer your son. Or?
As a down payment?
He was 8 months old at the time. I said to the salesman, here, hold this. I'm taking that. And I think we got about 400 metres up the road. I looked at the wife and I said, I'm buying this car. And
what number was it?
456.
456. So it was within the first 500.
It was
I
the
give
first
more
500.
credit for.
Yeah, and let me tell you, that car had an absolute life. It did drag racing, it did Malalar sprints, we did car cruises and all kinds of...
Wait, are you telling me it was used how it was intended?
Yes, yes.
What was your first son's name again?
Brandon.
Brandon. Hang on.
Not
Wasn't
Walkinshaw.
there was a Brock in there somewhere.
No, that was my dog's actually.
The dog. Oh, sorry. Yeah. But I mean, that was before the son, though. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember him yelling out to his dog, and I'm like,
Brock.
yeah.
Was any consolation?
Aussie Bogan, mate.
My dog's name was Turbo.
Oh, yeah, that's usually because they
What's
fart,
my dog called?
so-
What's my dog called? Sparkplug.
Valve.
Sigma.
No, Sparkplug. Okay, so
hang on. I've got my Walkinshaw story, though. Like,
So yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I was actually lucky enough to use that car in our wedding and all the rest of it. My son was brought home from hospital in it, and unfortunately, we sold it when we were running a business at the time. Now it popped up again only 6 months ago. I got a phone call randomly from a guy on Facebook saying, "Hey, do you used to own build number 456?" Yeah, I did, and it's now on car sales for $138,000. So
How much did you sell it for, Colin?
32 grand.
go.
so when my dad bought his Vl Commodore equipped wagon from Metro Holden, we went down there, walked in the showroom. There's a Vl Walkinshaw and a director. Both in the showroom. A red director.
A VL director. The proper, like
But this is 1997, I think.
They only built,
VS.
how many of them do they build? 12?
I've heard this
So-
story so many
Yeah,
times.
no,
He
I've
loves
told
this
you
story.
this, but yeah, Colin probably hasn't heard it. But so
It's cool.
we've walked in, Dad's checking out this VS wagon. I'm like, oh yeah, and I'm like, Dad, you realise that Walkinshaw over there for 30 grand is cheaper than your wagon you're buying? And I'm like, oh, Dad, you'd be really cool at the Rotary Club in that, rocking. And meanwhile, I'm going, I've just got my P's, a couple of years ago, but yeah. And then Dad's like, oh yeah, but Mum can't drive it; it's a manual. I'm like, Mum's got a car. She's got a Corolla. She doesn't need to drive your car. It's like,
Can I stick my hand up here and say, and you guys might think less of me, and you probably will, I'm not a big fan of the Walkinshaw. I never have
love them
been.
or hate them.
I never. You'd love to
There's
have
no
them,
in
but,
That's right.
but with a very, very, very emphasised but. I recognise the
You do have an
Walkinshaw,
emphasised butt,
right?
yep.
Next to Bondi Beach, Wild Oats Boat, Bundaberg Beer. It's a part of Australiana. It's part of history.
Did you say the movie Two Hands? What's the one scene that comes to mind?
The guy when he buries the money in the beach.
Oh, there's that, and then there's the camera panning around. There's the Walkinshaw parked in the driveway, the HQ Statesman with the Mr. Gasket bonnet.
Do you remember what house number and what street?
No.
186 Holden Street. Anyway, I
Bullshit,
continue
really?
on, right? This car here has been a conundrum for me for many years because I love it, but I hate it. But I do really recognise what it means to Australia. It doesn't matter if you're Ford or Chrysler or whatever. That was something that we said to the world, if you think you're hard enough, we built the HO.
Come
We
on.
now built this. Come and have a crack. Because
Yeah.
at that time,
But the HO was just like a wing and a bonnet scoop. That's a
yeah, but in the time for the
street-driven race
the
car.
HO was cutting edge, right?
Yeah.
This thing here had pop-up headlights. It had aero. It had EFI. It had a manual gearbox, so it wasn't relying on being an
But
auto.
most importantly, it had twin throttle bodies on it.
Twin
It
throttle
had four-wheel
bodies.
disc brakes.
Yeah.
It had LSD. It was everything that, let's say, a Maserati of the day or a Porsche or a Ferrari had, but it had 4 doors.
I'd looked at
That is
buying
cool,
a VL
actually.
Brock,
Yeah.
and I'd looked at buying SV88s, which was the Calais-based HSV.
How many of them
enhanced.
do they build? 150.
150.
Like
and
they're rarer
really,
than a walkie.
really raw car.
Not as
And then
rare
I
as a
drove the
CDT
Walkinshaw,
Chimera.
and it was all over. As,
was that, sorry?
as soon as I drove that VL Walkinshaw Group A and I heard that twin throttle body come on song, it was done.
Those
I was sold.
SV88s, they were the only carby-fed HSV ever built.
So
They-
slow.
All right.
Yeah, right.
So slow.
I reckon we wind that
We need-
up
we need
on
to
the
kick on,
VLs
don't
because
we?
we could go on to VL turbos, all that. And
That would be fully sick, Mark.
We would start
That
to
would be
change the
fully
way we
sick.
speak, mate, all right?
Oh my God.
Dave,
You like yellow ones, bro. BT1, BT1, BT1.
See, Mark, you have started this now.
And
you do not know where to
You're
stop.
the one that looks like you would own a VL amongst all 3 of us, bro. All right, so just go with it.
Chasers, bro. Chasers. We need chasers.
I have got VL turbo
BT1.
stories, but not of my own.
So
Shout out to my mate Andrew.
Let's
Let's
talk.
get kebabs.
Give me
Can we have a
something-
kebab in here?
Give me something weird and rare.
Let's
And
go-
our original plan was to go to about 4 o'clock with this, but we're obviously going to go over time. So we'll go until Dave has to like eject himself out of here to go and pick up his kids.
I've got children. I've got things to do.
He's got to trim his beard, all sorts of stuff like that.
Stroke it. It took me the other day, but I'll
Give me-
stroke it for a bit. Stroke it. So how are we going? We need some badge engineering, I feel. Captive import. But badge engineering is bullshit. I fucking hate it. How many Novas are
Lexan.
the worst? Lexans are hilarious.
Apologies
right?
to all the kids at home too.
Apollo?
Apollo, but badge engineering when it's a captive import is kind of like, well, okay, because you're not going to go out and build that.
You can't
car
get it anywhere
yourself.
else.
You can't get it anywhere else.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's not one of these. This is actually exactly not what I was talking about. This is the Holden Scurry, guys. Now, who remembers the Holden Scurry?
Isn't that a
It's
Suzuki?
basically a Suzuki Carey though.
A micro van.
And as a result, it's not a captive import, but K car. Is it K car, Kai car, Key car? They've got the engine's under a certain size, the wheelbase, the length, the width, all that's going to fit into the Key car class.
And still a column shift manual, I reckon.
Were they in that? I don't know.
I know that the shuttle was.
Yeah, that's another great badge engineer. And that one is a captive import. I've been in one of these in the Carey version, and I was really impressed with the crumple zones because they were my legs. And I was
Around your ears?
constantly I had my feet on the invisible brake. the
I
whole
saw
time.
one of
I
these
passenger
at
note.
Queensland Raceway, right? And the guy had S13 Nissan coilover shocks. And he had this, he had that. He had it dumped down. He had it on go. And I looked at it at the time, and I'm 6'2", going, you know what?
Way too
You
much time
just
in your
got to
hands.
dream. You got to dream. And
Yeah.
I've got a 15-year-old son, and I've tried to sell him the concept of buying one of these.
Yeah,
And he
yeah.
looks at me
'Cause
and
you hate
goes,
him.
no, Dad. No, it's like, yeah, but you know what? There's this cult following
Yeah.
for these Fruit Loop
Yeah.
vehicles.
They kind of have a cred.
Right.
They've cred down. Maybe not necessarily the
And,
Holden version, but yeah.
you can jam an Ecotech into this thing like easy as, right? No problems at all.
You wheel standing motherfucker.
Toaster, the burnout car, is one of them. The blue thing with an LS in it. They're the gift that keeps on giving.
Our
Is
mate-
that little one with the mid-engine? And
Yeah.
I was talking to that guy, and he goes,
Yeah.
when I go to tip it in, because the engine's in the middle, the thing doesn't like tip in on the front wheels. It just starts spinning on the spot,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
all 4 wheels just go.
Yeah, I mean, if you're
Out of
looking,
control.
realistically for an affordable Holden potential collectible that's not going to take much up space. In fact, you could probably put it in your garden shed. That's probably about as good as you could probably
could
I
be
mean,
a
you
garden
be a
shed.
garden shed.
Yeah, you could
I
pick them all
highly doubt
around.
you'd be able to find one of these one
Yeah.
day
And
easily.
you're not going to
let
find it
alone
on
a-
Marketplace, are you?
Let alone a Suzuki Carey. Well, if you did, you'd ask if it was still available.
There's
but,
4 at the
um,
Port Wakefield Wreckers, I can tell you. I know
but
this.
You've done the drive.
They're
dis-
not in very good condition.
Returning to Mother Earth.
So looking at the specs here, though, the disappointing part is that the 970cc 4-cylinder engine was just your boring 4-stroke.
Correct.
Whereas your Suzuki Carries came out with a 2-stroke
Yeah.
engine.
And
In that era? I'm not sure.
Ting, 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 ting,
Yeah.
ting, ting,
Now-
ting.
My neighbour had one. It was awesome.
Without digressing too much, we're talking about a Japanese vehicle which has got a Holden badge on it. Let's talk about a Holden that went over there and got a Japanese badge on it.
With the Mazda Road Pacer.
Road Pacer.
Actually, there were 2. What was the other one? The Isuzu kids, for those playing at home, Isuzu Statesman DeVille by GMH.
That's right. And there's it's a HQ, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a Q, yeah.
and that's actually still in a museum over
There's
there.
one. There was 246 sold,
Okay.
but there's one in a museum.
Black one or something
Daniel
like that.
O'Grady, shout out to Wasabi Cars over in Japan. He's found it. He spent a decade tracking one down just to photograph it and film it and stuff like that.
But who would have thought a rotor in a Kingswood?
It's hilarious because now people go, it was a stupid idea, and it was. But I mean, that car weighs the same as what does an RX-7 or RX-8 weigh? Like 1,300 kilo or something.
Yeah,
like
they're
that?
heavy. Yeah,
Yeah, like
it's similar. Yeah,
this thing's not much more really. And with today's modern technology, that thing would actually shift, but it doesn't, and it's slow, and it's hilarious.
But there's the old adjective at the moment on the internet, to melt the internet. And apart from being a Kardashian, all you have to do is take any car from the 60s or 70s remotely connected to the muscle car era and put a 13B in it.
Yeah,
right? And then just sit there and watch the
watch
haters.
it go.
and
well, I
just go,
mean, without me hunting around on YouTube, the cool thing is you've seen the bloke over in New Zealand. He's got
Yes.
I think it's a HQ with a 20B in it.
Oh no, I was thinking of there's a Ferrari. This bloke's just put a just put a 13B in a Ferrari,
Yeah.
and he's like triggered the internet.
Okay, so this is just now turned into a rotary conversation.
Yeah.
No,
Let's get back on the road.
Because you'll start
pace,
talking about a ute in a minute. And,
No, it's just random. Like it's almost like this guy's a bit of a tribute to the road pacer. He's like
True.
in New Zealand, 20Bs you can still find them behind rubbish bins and stuff like that. So he's just thrown one into a HQ and takes it out and drifts it.
Can I now take us to a car that's dear
No,
and
I'm not
clear to my
finished on
heart?
the road pace.
You got 20 seconds because this one's just going to motivate.
The guys that road tested, because there was one that got road tested in Australia, and they best described it as smooth,
linear and smooth.
linear and smooth,
Compared
Unlike
to
the
a
HQ
yeah.
ad, which was turbo power.
turbo power.
Turbo power. Turbo smooth.
Here we go.
Onwards, Jason.
This is the car that I sat in, I touched. When no one was around, I may have licked it at some
Did you
stage.
have some leakage?
Yes, it was. It was Holden's Effigy.
What a magnificent looking car.
Yep.
Now, before we get into the Effigy itself, there is a South Australian built car that was cover of Street
just
Machine that
thinking of that.
really had to be a big inspiration for what they did with Effigy. Interestingly, I had a phone call only last week saying that car will be dug out of the woodwork, or dug out of its hiding from the last 30 years and been brought out to a Holdens Back Home event later on this year.
But
But
you going to reveal what car that is, or you
that
can't?
would be the black FJ that was owned by
Colin
Colin
Townsend.
Townsend.
Street Machine of the Year. It was the only other Street Machine of the Year
What?
we've had, aside from the boys, the Morgillo boys, who have built that Statesman recently.
What a
Correct
sexy
me
looking
if
car.
I'm wrong. The body was all done by a guy called Dave Pullman, who did everything hand finish,
believe
like
it.
like lead wipe the whole deal, like old school style.
You guys seen that photo? It's probably one you might want to drum up.
It's his dad's car.
Oh, is it? They
Yeah.
park next to a stock
Yeah.
FJ. That thing's just like...
It's crazy.
Just fat.
And we're going to try and replicate
Well,
that later on this year.
The Effigy
that
guys.
photo.
If we go back on point with the Effigy,
True.
I encountered this car at Summer Nats, and I encountered the owner, and he's got a last name like
Richard
Falazaro.
Filazzo.
That's him, right? Really cool guy, very personable, representing the car, and obviously there was a team like behind him. But the claim to fame for this car was that Holden had commissioned it, GM had commissioned it, and all the work was done, and it was amazing, and it was driving and it running, but it went over to the American show car circuit and literally went, I'll take all of those and put them into this bucket here.
Now,
In
that
fact,
was a Riddler winner, wasn't it?
and it won
Yeah.
the Hot Rod Magazine Car of the Year.
That is
Right.
cool.
Now, the guy that oversaw the build, this guy, was a really humble, really cool, and would say to anybody, "Yeah, hop in it, sit in it, no problems at all, have a crack." It was just for me, that car embodied what Holden was and what it could have been.
A lot
At
of
that-
vision
at that
went
tipping
into it.
point,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
what it was utes with freaking stuff in the tray and crazy builds and Sandmans. What it could have been, the embracing of retro technology moving forward. That could have been electric. That could have been diesel. They could have powered it, whatever they
And it
wanted.
showed the flexibility, I guess, at the time with what we had with the VE platform.
Yep.
I think it's
Because
built on a
that's-
Corvette platform.
And just think how lucky was the guy that
Yeah.
built it, being that he got
pretty
paid
sure.
to make that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although, you know, he's Richard Filazzo, he may want to dial in and correct me if I'm wrong, but he's probably atoning for his sins because I think he was the guy that also designed the VN Lexan. Like, he was, because he worked at Toyota at the time, and he was sort of told, okay, you need to Toyota this up a bit.
Well,
Put a
maybe we need
V6
to
badge on the
no
put
ground.
budget.
put him in a room with Jeff Tartuzzi for helping with the Rally Art Magna.
Do you know what I mean?
Well,
you
Rally
know,
Art Magnas are close to my heart.
Yeah, well, I just that car. You know, a lot of people are either car enthusiasts or they're not car enthusiasts. I've not met one person I haven't showed that car to that gone,
Blows
oh,
their mind.
wow.
Yeah.
And we've got that crossover from Holden now becoming art. And when it becomes art, you know what? GM, you can do whatever you want to do, but that car, I'll say it right now down the camera, that car needs to go to the Australian Museum. It needs to be right in the front foyer of the Australian Museum to say, look at what we did.
This is Aussie ingenuity. at its
Yeah,
best.
absolutely. I love that car.
There's nothing about that car that doesn't work, and anyone who picked on it would just be an idiot.
Maybe
really.
they
Very
need to
sadly, we
Sorry,
almost ended up with that car here last year, and it was going to be up at the National Motor Museum, but unfortunately the airbags are leaking, and they couldn't get it onto the truck.
No.
Geez, don't get it down, they'll confiscate it and give you a payout at Redbook.
All right, let's move on because we've got plenty more to get through. So
I can slam you another weird one. In terms
Yeah,
of, in terms of
we
concept
like
cars.
weird,
This is one that probably
especially from
people
you.
don't remember. Does anybody remember the Holden Jack 8 concept?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember? You guys do remember that?
Yes, I do.
That was it was basically a short wheelbase Holden Jackaroo, which was an Isuzu Trooper.
The 8 was chosen because off was already taken by you, wasn't it, Mark? With
yeah,
the
you hold
website
it up
design.
to that camera there.
Absolutely.
With the big long arm.
And might have had
One-liners.
something to do with the LS1 whacked in it as well. Oh, there we go. There's one you prepared earlier. Oh, there you go.
Almost on the camera there, Jason.
You know what?
Just over this- yep. Well, there.
Absolute bullshit thing about that is that I reckon, aside from the styling being a little bit old now, if you'd have brought that out now, well, dude, just buy it.
It'd be a seller. I mean, they're
Oh.
selling Jeeps.
Yeah.
Let's face it.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
Well-
yeah. Aside from the fact it's got a roll bar and like a wheel hanging off the back and convertible, that sort of stuff. If you get a V6 and V8 powered versions of that, two wheelbases, dual cab ute version and stuff, and you're building them here. Aside from the fact that it's hard to compete with the tyre market because they're doing everything for like literally $10 a day for their workers. Conceptual wise, it was bang on, but it wasn't bang on at the time.
Two companies missed the opportunity at the right time. Rewind the tape. Let's say, what are we, 2020? 15 years ago, and that was FPV and HSV. They missed an opportunity, and what it was
In the SUV
was a
market space.
Ford Ranger and something else big. And what do we got now? We got Raptors and we got Isuzus and we got Muxes and we got. They missed it. And they missed the ability to survive. But you know what? Some people make mistakes and companies make mistakes. That's a cool example of what could have been.
All right, Colin.
Absolutely.
What
You're
a
next.
Fruit Loop of a car.
I'm next. Well, I guess I've sort of brought on this whole 2000s era again, but we can't go past without talking about, obviously, Monaro and the whole how that come into our market space, but what that Monaro actually brought to us by way of other cars as well. So when you sort of say Maryland, the convertible Monaro, again,
It got embroiled in some kind of lawsuit for about 2 years.
Yes,
didn't
it did. It did. But there's something. Let's pretext this second coming of the Monaro because there was an elephant in the room that's never hardly been spoken of. But if you do the maths and do the sums, Holden were very, very smart at the time. They capitalised on their nemesis demise, which was the AU Falcon, and that went down like a lead balloon.
well, to do the launch the way they did on
and
this
all
thing.
Holden did was go, "Oh, sorry, Ford, checkmate," and dropped a Monaro.
15 minutes later,
Monaro, and
Check this shit out.
Australia went Ford, Holden,
Yeah.
and they just followed. It was a brilliant marketing ploy, but look at that car in the raw design form, Mark. That has to be a beautiful design.
That prototype one is absolutely the sexiest version with a normal VT rear garnish across the back of it. I think just absolutely
Just
works
swap
on it.
across here.
Yep.
There you go.
Can we quickly go around the table with the VT, with the Monaros, and do your very quick, succinct Monaro story? Pick one, go. Go.
Look,
Okay,
there's quite a few,
okay.
but working at the plant at the time, I was lucky enough to be able to sort of jump in a couple of the prototypes.
Yep.
And I do remember jumping in a supercharged V6, going up Yorktown Road and heading in towards One Tree Hill, down the Blacktop Hill Road,
Yep.
Which was Holden's test track on the road at the time.
Yep.
And top of Blacktop Hill Road is very wavy, very
Yes.
bumpy, and not exactly a pleasant place to be, particularly with a brand new prototype vehicle, which I think was an early build one, so not everything's quite
was
right.
it hothouse green?
No, it was Quicksilver.
Oh, cool.
And filled with three other, I guess, rambunctious Holden employees. The question had to be asked, what does she do, mate? So, yeah, four Holden employees, about 2:30 in the afternoon, Blacktop Hill Road.
What did she do, mate?
Yeah, look,
It did.
it leant over,
Leave it at
shall
that.
we
Leave it
say.
at that.
Let's leave it at that.
Fair enough.
Go.
2001 was it? The first came out.
Yeah, you were going down Blacktop Hill Road and one went past.
No. So Summer Nats, I was part of the Street Machine team when the first CV8 went there, yellow one. I was lucky enough
Devil
to
Yellow?
do some laps in that around Summer Nats, and people were just losing their shit over it. just because it was the first one they'd ever seen in the flesh.
Chuck a sick your burnout,
And you just
Yeah. But my story similar to that though is there used to be a commentator at Summonats, an American guy called Doc, I think.
Yep, certainly is. Yeah.
And he and I were in the front part of the car on the way back from the Summonats on the Monday. Because Craig Parker, Street Machine back then, Sunday night Summonats, they had your typical drinks and stuff like that, and Craig woke up a little worse for wear on Monday morning.
Dusty.
The word.
seedy.
So whilst Craig was in the fetal position in the back seat recovering,
Plenty of room.
I was driving back. Doc was in the passenger seat absorbing all the oxygen in the cabin because I couldn't get a word in because he was American and he talked a lot. Nice guy, but all of a sudden he went, the Big Dipper coming back towards Sydney on the Hume, where it goes down the hill, and I'm coming down that hill.
Adelaide boys, Mark.
VNSS full of like Summonats dudes next to us pulls up next to gives me a bit of a rev, and I'm like, fuck it, gassed it in this Monaro. Doc's gone quiet. Craig's still out for the count in the back, and I think we hit something.
Couple of dollars on the mark.
Yeah, a couple of dollars and a half, and
Nice.
but that was just cool because it was like that, and like you mentioned RX-8 before, I got to drive the first RX-8 in the country too.
Different story. Go.
I do have one. One thing that sort of I get annoyed about is when people go, "This is the rarest Holden ever." Mine's the rarest Holden ever. It's the rarest. When you got one of one, it's the rarest Holden ever, right? And there are many, many one of ones, and one of ones, people, is Peter Hannenberger's own personal V2 Commodore, Monaro coupe that he had built up, or I'm assuming they gifted it to him in left-hand drive, but fully badged as a Holden
For him to take back.
To Germany when he retired, and
Because he had an SV99 while he was here.
did he really? Yeah, okay. And I think it's just the coolest thing. I think it was auto. Was it auto? Which I was never a big fan of the old Holden autos when there was the old 4-speed, but hopefully he's still got it. I don't know if he still does, but that is a definite one of one and a super cool car.
All right, correct me if I'm wrong. I've forgotten his surname. Brendan had the VE Monaro they built, the custom one, the orange one. Like not a factory car. Yeah, the VE, they did it all up like a HSV. They used a ute and then turned it into
it had the
no.
Coupe 60 sort of look.
Right.
All right. So this is going to be a quick story. It was back in the time I was working.
That was a
with
great
you on
story,
magazines.
Jason. Anyway,
And
Well done.
Mark will tell you, right, I can blag basically anything. Give me an opportunity, I can get it. I got the UK press car Monaro that was here when they first did the rounds, and you guys probably remember it was electric blue. I don't even know what colour, what it's called. 6-speed LS, the whole lot.
Is this the one that broke Jeremy Clarkson's back?
Possibly, I'm not sure, right? So here in Adelaide, it was delivered to me from the East Coast.
Yeah,
right, because I said that I was going to write a story for the UK market through Street Machine magazine in the UK that I had a contact who I was writing for at the time. So they said, yep, we commission you to write an article on the new Monaro. I've gone, cool. Rung up Holden. I was on the list through the magazines I was working with Mark, and they deliver the car to my door with a truck. Right? My wife has come out. I'm driving at the time. What was I driving? That EF Falcon or something? And I had a Dodge D5N, and there's out the front brand new Monaro. Well, the people were coming out of the houses to watch this car. Cut a long story short, I go to work. I'm just a service advisor at a Mitsubishi dealership. Where do you reckon I parked the Monaro?
Right at the front.
In the principal's car park, right? Because I knew him, right? So anyway, they all wanted to have a ride. So the principal hops in with me, big Iranian guy, I won't tell you what his name is. We're on Goodwood Road outside the pub. And he says to me, show me what it can do. Now, I didn't even lift the bonnet.
Show me what you got.
I didn't even know what was under the bonnet. I just went first, about 4.5, 5 grand, let the clutch go. And if you know Goodwood Road, I got from the pub to the train line, to the tram line, and it's going, what? He goes, okay, that's enough, I buy. I said, no, you can't buy this one. It's a press car. He goes, I buy this one. I said, you can't buy this one. So anyway, I took it back. I didn't even look at the tyres.
Nope.
I just said, the car's awesome, take it back. That was it. That's the last car Holden ever gave me as a press car.
Absolutely. So should we move? I want to be the one that moves on because Monaros are beautiful and wonderful, but there is another very special Holden coupe that we've missed out on here in this whole thing, and I think it's really important. You used to have one, as I understand, and I think they're amazing. You could walk into a Holden dealership back in 1986, and for $18,000, you could buy a VL SL base model with a turbo. It had the 15s. It had the the Gerlock brakes or whatever they were. They were like, they were like turbo spec brakes. And you could be cutting 15-second quarters, which at the time was pretty impressive. That's for $18,000. But for $30,000, you could buy yourself an Isuzu sourced Holden Piazza, which was roughly as fast and didn't go around corners at all. And it was the styling, while people lag on it, was by Giorgio, whose name I can't pronounce properly at all, who was quite famous. But look at that. I mean,
it's like a Sigma that had sex with a Renault Fuego. It's like
now,
sorry, not a Sigma, a Starion. I get that wrong. Yeah.
One time when I was unemployed, I was sitting there watching TJ Hooker on TV during daytime TV, a repeat of TJ Hooker, and he's on a public phone, and in the background, an Isuzu Impulse, which is the American market Piazza, went past, a Fuego, and like a Starion, and like another coupe, and they were in a row, one after another. And I went and looked and Googled endlessly to find out if there was like a Motor Trend road test that happened to be around that time, because what are the odds of like 4 personal coupes, all current model, all going past William Shatner's head?
Change one letter in all of those names, they mean something completely different.
Yeah, they generally mean failure.
This was named after an Italian place to go and have coffee in an open space.
It was a lifestyle car.
I mean,
take a look at the digital dash to start off with. The first thing that strikes you when you jump in the cabin isn't just the robotic style seats, it's the digital dash. Now, if you've driven a VK Calais and you've had those glitches of blip, blip, the Piazza epitomises all of that. It's
these things, they probably work fine while they're under warranty, right?
Yeah, look, we didn't have it while it was under warranty, that's for sure. I think we bought it from a second-hand used car place on North East Road and swapped a VK Calais for it. But
I got no comments on this. I've never been a fan of them, but I look at them and it's a nostalgic walk down memory lane. And
it's just all part of the big history.
All I remember is Dennis Mobbs pulling the wheels off and pulling the engine out, putting him into his Gemini.
He was great at that, the old Gemmy spares back in the day.
That's all I got.
And I actually used to frequent to get some bits and pieces for it. But the worst thing about that car, other than it was perhaps it had more head jobs than a 18-year-old frat boy, because it would just completely blow the guts out of the heads, particularly with the Julian Edgar spec Zoom magazine boost
Came with
mods.
an Apple.
Came with an
There
Apple.
we go.
So go on.
Well, just quickly on that, did you notice something special about the rear seats? They were tilt. I did remember
They
that.
would recline
They
backwards.
would recline.
They would, and
which was quite
you could
rare.
lay them flat and put the red heater on the back,
It
and let him throw off on the way to the river.
weird tilting rear seat thing. I don't know what was going
But
on.
the steering rack on these things would actually shift mid-corner. So you'd be halfway through a corner, you hit the apex of the corner, and you'd feel the whole steering rack go, and you'd have to readjust your...
Must be an Isuzu thing, because my Bellets do that occasionally as well.
Surely you've got
Holden
some
pizza.
other monstrosities.
Holden pizza.
Okay, how much
You
time
can
we got
share
left,
with it.
Boxer?
Well, as much as we want to
Well, while he's finding one, can we quickly
I've-
talk about this one? Because there's a car that Holden's demise has
please.
happened, right? And everyone's kind of going, oh, poor old Holden. And then out of nowhere, in a Hail Mary pass, comes a car that we all overlooked and we didn't really take too seriously.
I did.
And that was the black Holden Ute Mule for the new Corvette.
Blackjack, they called it, didn't they?
Do you know, when that came out, it had spy shots from the drone, and we're all sitting there going, suffer in your jocks, America, right? But little did we know
What was going on underneath?
what was going on. And that car, again, another milestone for Holden to say, we're gone, but you will never forget us.
That car, essentially putting the Holden front and sort of, with the Corvette, I think C7 doors or whatever, I think it was really just GM just fucking around, to be honest with you.
Mucking with people's...
Yeah, mucking with people, and, and in a good way. But I think it's just hilarious, and it was brilliant when it came out, and all of a sudden, there's this mid-engine Ute thing. Look at them.
If Ford had done it, they would have put like an AU front onto a Mustang.
Yeah, exactly.
This I'm just going to say to you three guys, and I hold it up, this is not the first of its kind. So start thinking. It's a black Holden Ute, and it's mid-engine. Where have you seen it done before? It's not original.
Aussie Bandit wheel stander?
No.
Well, you got me, man.
That's twin engine.
It was the very first street machine summer natch.
Blowback.
The
Blowback, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, correct.
Blowback 2.
So
Small
you
block
guys
7 in the front,
253
253 in the back.
Jason Way, I'm looking at you. We've had this discussion. Why could you not mid-mount something with a big blower on the back in a Ute? It's obviously going to work.
Well, it does work.
Once Jason Way gets through his 78 other projects, he's
Look
got
at
on the
it.
go.
Can you imagine
Was
that
it a sports
with the
sedan?
big and ugly off the top of the roof?
Yeah, but no, it would be doable. You need to wonder why you need it. I mean, like, because
If you have to ask why, you're the wrong person.
Yeah,
to
mate,
come
that
up.
ain't no good at the
You're the wrong
BNS ball.
person for the conversation.
I ain't
can't
going to be
take
good
that
as a
to
burnout
Tick,
car.
tick, tick, tick. Monstrosity. Give me a monstrosity.
I do have one here, and it's probably the be all and end all of weird ass Holdens. Anybody heard of the Holden Linker?
No.
You've got me.
No, the Holden Raider, which is a fraud word as well. The Holden Linker and the Holden Raider were built. They were Isuzu chassis with a Isuzu like a C220 diesel, I think it was, but they were built in Indonesia, and the Linker was marketed throughout Indonesia. The Raider only in East Java for reasons I don't know. I discovered it when I was doing this A to Z of Holden article for Street Machine a few years ago, and I needed something for L. Anyway, and but yeah, and so it's a really, really random vehicle. And I don't know if you want to share that with the people.
So this is like
It's
being
basically
Indonesian. It's like the competitor to Toyota Kijang.
Yes, exactly that. It's a fiberglass. I think it's a
Anyone who's
fiberglass.
been in Indonesia knows what a Toyota Kijang
I
is.
love
Every
Toyota
vehicle is a
Kijangs.
musical
Hang on.
sound.
So can you hold that up, Jason?
Linker, Kajang.
Well, Linker
sounds like
Ciao.
Linker means lively.
Lightning McQueen.
Lively.
Hold it
Lively
up to the
McQueen.
camera so
Lively
everyone else
McQueen.
can enjoy it.
So I reckon they're fiberglass. They've obviously have a locally built body. They're built on a Isuzu platform. I have no idea why Holden's name was attached to them. But reality is, and I was looking at it, and there's a guy who responded to the photo on whatever random ass Indonesian site I'd fallen onto last night, and he said my father has one of these from new. It is in impeccable condition, and I'm like, send me photos of that car, because that photo, boys and girls, is the only photo I've ever found of one. They're like a Jackaroo style body, like an Isuzu Panther, which is another Indo car, but which is made of steel.
Hang on a second. It's got a groundbreaking 62 horsepower.
Yeah, that is groundbreaking. In fact, it breaks the ground whenever it goes. But yeah, the battery, the wheels were all made in Indonesia. That's important stuff. Glass, rubber, and the floor, according to the Wikipedia, as opposed to the Google
As
trainer.
many bodyboard bags as possible in the back.
Yes, definitely. You can fit quite a few in. I reckon. You know what I mean? It's
I
one
have
step.
like this Chappelle edition, like this instead of the
Yeah,
sports girl edition.
the body's made of hemp on that version.
Something about a Isuzu Fanta.
So I think Holden had Holden had a manufacturing interest in Indonesia. That's where, like, I think, like some of the LH Tiranas were assembled there, and a whole bunch of Kingswoods were assembled there.
We had VP Commodores with like 2-litre 6-cylinder motors.
I reckon-
Weird things.
Yeah, they were built here.
There was some. Yeah, they were built here, and some of them ended up over in Hong Kong, New Zealand. I think
Taxis, were
Vectra
they used as
V6s.
taxis, or were they diplomacy vehicles?
Diplomacy vehicles.
Do you think it was just the executives just trying to cash in on as many free trips to Bali
Yeah,
as
pretty
possible?
well. So this thing here was about 1986, and that Holden's interest in Indonesia ceased in 1991, and the records of why that exists and how were all lost at that time, unfortunately.
Guys, can I just make an observation just on the fly here? Holden in Australia sounds like it was trying to make an incursion into Southeast Asia, and I can't help but thinking GM in the US was saying, what are you guys doing down there to expand your brand?
Yeah.
We're selling in South America, we're selling in Canada, what are you doing? And they go, we're building cars for Southeast Asia. It sounds like they was almost like a bit of a man scramble to sort of try and tick some marketing
Tick a box,
boxes.
and here you go. Have this thing here.
Problem is as well is if we're building cars for Southeast Asia, like what our labour rates, we're never going to be competitive in that respect. And you can build it in. Having said that, the Thailand manufacturing, there was a Thailand manufacturing plant that was owned by General Motors Holden, but they built Geminis there. Bit of Gemini chat for you, but interesting.
Here we are.
There you go. But
You and
interestingly,
I and Gemini.
Interestingly, yeah, the really bizarre thing that we sort of discovered, me and a fella, Darren O'Neill out in Perth, who's a big aficionado, shout out to him, is that they were left-hand drive. They were Isuzu sourced kits, like they were fully Isuzu. They weren't like, there was no Holden part that I know of on them. The Aussie ones all had Holden, rear brakes, axles, radiators, all the bits and pieces, glass, all that sort of stuff. These ones were fully like CKD, I reckon, kits out of Japan, built in Thailand, and their build plate says built by General Motors Holden, Thailand, and it just blows my mind because I just didn't know it existed. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Can we go to some concepts? I'd like to Yeah, because we're running slim on time, but we've still got a little bit of time up our sleeve.
Concepts.
The one that we haven't brushed yet, 202 powered.
Oh, how many carburetors does it have, Mark?
3.
Oh, hang on. You sure it's not 186 powered?
I could be wrong. Hang on.
Does it look wedgy?
I've touched it.
Wedgie.
I've touched it.
I've sat in it.
Me too. It was so
Felt
good.
it.
I still haven't really come down from that. To be
It's
honest with you.
just so much.
It was.
It's
it
a
was so
GDRX
close.
Tirana.
Was that this car show?
It
Well,
was.
sorry, not
That's where I sat in
GDRX
it,
Tirana,
actually.
but the GDRX.
The GRX. This is one of my favourite concepts. This,
I love that. Another dimension in motoring.
yeah. The
Why this
fourth
car
dimension.
has not yet been replicated as a kit car in some way, shape, or
I know.
form
It's
is
so much
beyond
criminal.
me.
This is dated August 1970. You know, and that was just.
Careful there, Jason. I think the pages are a bit stick together, mate.
Yeah, they are. They're fragile and they're moist.
But there's so much.
Moist.
Everything about that car is still today's like that's a Bond car just waiting to happen.
It is
It's-
so cool. It's a mini Aston Martin.
It's Toyota 2000 GT. It's Datsun 240Z. It's all that stuff that could have and should have and did, but it didn't.
I mean, what would the one that's existing be worth? Like, yeah.
But you know what? And
Yeah.
how many existing? There's 1.5. Because there were 3 bodies made. One of them, and I was talking to Phil Smood today, the guy that designed it, and I said, "Do you know what happened to the second car? Was it crashed or crash tested? Like, did somebody accidentally crash it, like at Lang Lang or whatever, or was it deliberately barrier tested?" He's like, "I don't know."
This is the orange one.
No, that's the body shell because there's this I think it's the gel coat body shell.
Okay.
And and that was the one that was it was built as just the body, and it was. I think they sold. The rumor I saw on the internet was that it was sold to somebody on the proviso it never got built as a car, and this guy's been trying to build it as a car ever since.
Because that one that's up at Birdwood now is
Yeah.
white, but
Yeah.
it was silver. And when I was a child
Yeah, it
going
was.
up there and looking at that
And
car.
before that, it was white, like when it was new. And people go to me, like, "Oh yeah, I've seen the white one, I've seen the silver one." I'm like, "No, they're the same car."
Same car.
Yeah.
I got a chance when it was the car show recently to probably spend about an hour of what we'll call quiet time with this car, right? And
Did
what
you
I was
speak to it? Did you caress it?
Do you know what I actually did? I did, right? I did, and I'm not unabashed in saying that I did
said,
do that.
"Have
but
you seen my
I
baseball?"
just want to make an observation on this car. There was nothing American about that car, right?
No.
If I was to make it an observation on all the cars I've ever seen in my life, it had more European flavour. I've got a friend who's got an E-Type Jag.
So I was about to say Jag E-Type, long bonnet.
The build quality, the clips, the wiring, the finish of the trim, the way the dials looked. I'm trying to think of a Holden that's currently in existence at the moment, including the Tirana. And sorry, the LJ LC Tiranas and the little HBs are probably as close to the build quality because they obviously had a European flavour in the original days. But that particular car, the GDRX, we've all been in its presence, okay? And there's it's like being next to an Olympic world record holder, blah blah blah. There's something about it. You feel enriched coming away from the environment and the experience with a car. My 15-year-old son was at the car show with my daughter. Right, she's 12, he's 15. I took them up. My wife was there as well. I said, "Have a look at this car. This is this banging on, blah blah blah, and all that sort of stuff." Right, and then we moved on. When we moved on, I had to look back, and one of my kids was standing there. It was my daughter, my 12-year-old daughter, and she came back to me and she said, "Dad, it just looks right." So this was
Wow, that's really cool.
And my son had moved on. He's looking at some blown car, and my wife's moved on. But my young daughter, she could see
Everything fits the way
what
it
was
should.
there. So I would say to
Proportionally
anybody,
correct.
if you get a sniff of an opportunity to view the car in person, travel the distance. Go the distance to go and see that GDRX because it is something. It's a really special motoring experience.
What I get as well, and it's another thing about the keyboard warriors on the internet. They'll go, "That thing looks." It looks shit, and it doesn't. It's like stylistically,
Dave,
it's
stop
perfect.
listening to the potatoes.
I know that's exactly the
All
thing.
right.
But the thing as well is if that, and of course it's unfamiliar, right?
Yeah.
If that thing was like as common as the 240Z, which is there are plenty around, and we saw them, they probably never would have raced at Bathurst because that was saloon car sort of only sort of stuff. But if that thing, they ended up with sports sedans, with the kits and stuff. If those things ended up on people's driveways,
It would have an LS in it right now.
fucking those things would be worth fucking heaps now, right? And people would be all over them. They would love them. They would have made maybe 10,000, which 40
Well, it
years
was so
later
close.
isn't many.
It was so close to production.
It's
You've got
almost-
the brochure. The sales brochures were done. They're ready to go.
Yeah.
It does tell you though Holden recognised Australia needed its own sports car.
Yeah.
It needed
But
its own sports car.
They could travel over corrugated roads.
To me, looking at the actual shape and the styling of it, like it's a little bit Lotus-esque here and there, but then it's almost like got that nice British look about it, but then it's got a bit of muscle to it as well. Yeah. But
It's really small though. I was surprised how small it was.
It is. It's quite compact, particularly when
genuinely-
it's parked next to the Hurricane, which is another wonderful 60s
I'd
machine.
love somebody to just go in and do a full 3D scan of one of them, get one CNC machined out of polystyrene, and then mould the thing and then make kits.
Yeah,
So
that's
cool.
that's
Do it,
totally my
AussieSportsCars.com.
that's totally my my lottery dream. This car wasn't 100% unique. There was other ones. This was the Vauxhall, like a Vauxhall concept car around the same era, but unrealistic. This couldn't be a production car.
I believe that design was bought by Hot Wheels shortly
It
afterwards
might be-
and turned into the twin mill.
I was going to say, are you kidding? Because that sounds realistic, to be honest with you. Oh, there's the back of it, as you can see. It's just a bit of E-type here.
Just quickly, following on from Mark, how hard, and this is a little bit of sacrilege, how hard would that be to do a kit car and put it on top of an MX-5?
I don't know.
It's about the same size. It's about the same size, really. It's just
Comments,
You know what?
Comments on the
out comes the
what?
Mazda, in goes the 186.
It would
That would be liberating.
Comment
You know
below.
what?
Mazda twin cam motor out and 186 in.
I'll be honest, it would be munted. There would not be a way to make it exactly right. But give it a crack. Why not?
I'd turn that over. I'd turn that over with an open check to someone like Howard Astle and say, Howard, build me that.
Yeah.
Just as we're on concepts as well, like Rory's just brought up the Hurricane.
Let's talk about that. Let's have a chat about the
Full
Hurricane.
screen
what a
there.
machine.
Yeah.
And it was pretty cool. Was it like 2 years ago they restored it?
10 wasn't it?
Yeah, 10 years ago,
Oh, yeah,
the car
but-
was in a pretty sad
years.
state of repairs. But the first thing that strikes you when you walk up to that car is the colour.
I've never seen it.
It's so Camaro ski boat, metal flake heavy.
It's metal flake as.
It's crazy.
Give us some data. Years, engine.
So
what's the build?
69, I reckon. Yeah, 253.
It's the first 253.
It was the true
it showcases
thong
the
slapper.
253.
Yeah.
It's the thong slapper. Shout out to those boys as well.
So we're talking about that beautiful press photograph of the Monaro, of the woman hopping out of the Monaro, looking back sideways. The Andy Warhol, Free Love,
There's
all that sort of stuff. And that thing comes out. And we've got Jetsons on TV. We've got Lost in Space.
It's that whole era. I mean, the bubble top.
Yeah.
Now, I've actually got a great video of
Purvis Eureka style.
That car being moved at our car show a couple of years ago, and the Dean that was driving the car at the time, he's quite clearly on the camera, I don't put the top down because it gets too hot in here, there's no air conditioning and there's no airflow. So he's got to drive the car
Did you
around.
have to be at speed to get airflow?
Get the
Can't
top
say,
up, yeah.
I couldn't comment on that. But
What gearbox did that thing run? Because it's mid-engine, right? So what gearbox? Was it like a Hewlin racing transaxle or something?
transaxle.
Because it's not something Holden would have.
No, they did specify which one it was, and it may very well be on the brochure, but
It could be something really agricultural, like a Massey Ferguson, because there was a few weird crap like that.
Yeah.
floating
straight
around.
out of the...
This thing had closed circuit TV for a really.
Yeah, I
and
remember
it
that.
works, and that spun
But does it
me out.
really?
So on that
Wow.
video footage that I got, and I'll give it to Mark afterwards, you can post it up, but you can actually see the black and white TV screen flickering, like an old 1960s episode of I Love Lucy. Wow. And everything in that car manoeuvres and moves in some way, shape, right down to the fact that it's got a tracking device on it, which was there to autonomously drive it. And I think they set it up at Lang Lang that they'd have sensors along the test road, and the car would.
There's
do its
sensors
thing.
under the road, I think, wasn't it? Like a magnet thing under the
magnetized
road.
road.
So-
and the whole world was going to have it.
Yep, it was the
As
thing.
opposed to saying, about how cool that car is, let's just think for a second what that car looks like in '69. Let's fast forward to 75s, mid 70s. Who was building supercars that looked like that?
Well, it's got Countars written all over it, as far as I'm
Yeah.
concerned.
because that died. That project died.
Yeah.
And someone's gone, steal it.
A tail design.
Yeah.
That project was never designed to be a road car. It was always going to be a concept. That's acknowledged. But every single concept car that almost everything that comes out, 5 years later, there's some aspect of
So
it.
what
on the
is it?
road.
I've never really stopped to think that thought process. Who stole, the design of it and
You
molded
would have
it?
to have been, you'd love to have been a fly on the wall of the pub that's in Lang Lang in Victoria there, and listen to the conversations that were going on at the time guys bouncing backwards and forwards from the testing facility and what have you.
There's even like the back end with the
mesh
spats over the wheels kind of thing. It's a bit of Le Mans spec.
Like a cam back where it's a straight flat, and then it's got sequential indicators as well. I think, doesn't it? And is it sequential brake lights as well? Because I'm not sure if I'm remembering this wrong, but there's one like if you hit the brakes gently, the brake light comes on, and if you hit it hard, like 3 of them come on. If you know what I mean. So it gives you an idea of how hard the person's braking. I'm not sure if that's true.
You were mentioning gearboxes a second ago, so
please.
I just buried my head in the phone here to find Dave Morley's story that he did on it.
Yeah.
And it's got stuff like the fact that it had oil-cooled brakes.
Yes.
Yes.
Weird. Last thing you want is brakes with oil on them, but also he said here the transaxle was more exotic, but rather than simply opt to buy something like a Porsche 5-speed unit, Holden actually made from scratch a transaxle based from a standard 4-speed manual.
That's
So it's based on an M21.
There you go.
Yeah,
is that an Aussie 4-speed?
Is that like a
Aussie 4-speed?
Aussie 4-speed. mate.
Aussie 4-speed?
Yeah,
so it's
right.
something like you'd have in your Tirana, like.
That is astounding that they had the means to actually create like their own gearbox just for this one-off thing. I mean, it was a skunkworks kind of thing, but
was it that at the time, or they just trying to justify it to their bosses?
I can't help but going to our modern day cousin.
Yeah, but that was done by Chevrolet, right?
I know, but like this is where people kind of go, does it have to be in the front? Does it have to be four-wheel drive? Can we put it in the back? Can we do a transaxle? The Mule Ute, the Hurricane, you kind of go, it's engineering at its best.
All right, I think we've got time for like 2-3 more. Let's, Colin, do you want to dig into your pile of
goodies?
of history there?
Well,
and whip something out that...
I'd say just some of these really cool, quirky things that I've come across now. Check this out. 1989 motorsport calendar. The Perkins Walkinshaw parked there up on the front there. The car eventually went on to win Bathurst, I think, in 1990.
Is that the... No, there's 1990... Was that one? Because that was that was a HRT car.
That's the HRT car.
Oh, is that... Yeah, of course it is. Yeah, with Percy and Grice, wasn't it?
And in that era, I distinctly remember Walkinshaw had his car prepared over in head office in Europe, and then Perkins... Nah, we don't want that. We're going to build our own. Yeah. And that car lasted the full distance of the race versus the Walkinshaw car.
There's a backstory to this, though, right? Because the rumour, and everybody knows the rumour, who used to build the engines for the field for the Holdens? Who used to build them? Perkins, right? And funny enough, Perkins' engine used to be always a little bit better.
And why wouldn't it be?
Just a little bit better.
He's not an idiot.
And and I remember watching the footage, and two of them would come around the corner, and Perkins would be with Brock or who were against it, and Perkins would just ever so slightly edge away. The revs would be like the same, and it's like...
Well, you look at the rules of that era. Now, the rules of that era were very much factory-based. Yeah. Group A was...
500 built. You're going to build 500, unless it's a VN.
Yeah, Mr. Perkins would get a delivery from the Holden engine plant of a bunch of connecting rods and would sit there and go through each one of those connecting rods. Just let's clarify,
they were authorised engine deliveries.
They weren't. Yeah.
But, you put them on the scale. Every one of those ones that weigh 0.5 of a gram over, well, they can go into Brock's car.
Yeah.
And I'm going to keep all the reciprocating mass absolutely spot on.
But Perkins I've met Perkins a couple of times, right? And he's a quirky sort of a dude, right? And if you said to him, Dave, okay, so here's the deal. I'm Peter Brock, you're Perkins. Here's the deal. No problems at all. We swap engines. Right, Perkins would have worked that out and given Brock the better engine.
Oh, really? You reckon?
Right? Yeah, and he would have gone, no problems. I'm cool to do that. Swapped it and said, thank you for the 5 horsepower more engine.
Thank you very much.
He was just a genius, that guy.
Look, those guys had a crack out.
So we're going to quickly segue because Rory's already brought it up on the screen here. But
here we go.
He's
been dying to do this.
You've been gagging for this action.
Absolutely. Bring it back up on the screen, Rory.
He's everywhere. He's everywhere.
Dave, you are the guru on this. The Holden Super Chicken.
I'm not the guru of this. I just found it fascinating.
Let's just talk about the two HQ Utes we were talking about.
The Utes. Well, this is along that same line. I mean, this is the Super Chicken. Is it called Super Chicken? It actually was, wasn't it?
So hang on, let me read this here.
Read it out for us, Boxer.
We'll bring this up on screen.
You need to put it in your radio chicken man type voice. Well, Mrs. Hellfinger.
Introducing Super Chicken.
Do it in Colonel Sanders' voice.
Customised idea in years, specially designed for the younger Holden Ute and customer.
You really need
designers
to
next
using mind bonding colours.
Sounds very Star Trek.
No, sorry, mind bending. You idiot. Yeah, it's a little blurry, and I'm blind. So
and you've got no arm.
Armless.
The Super Chicken.
What sort of wheels?
Looking like some sort of
Magnums.
Ansons.
Some sort of Indian tribal setup.
Wow.
That thing there, I mean, that was an option. It's just a not even an aftermarket option. I think it's a sticker pack, really. A dealer fit sticker pack.
Do you know what that says?
Z71.
You know what it says? sure, Sundowner, try and steal the market.
Yeah,
we'll
you
bring
might
the
be
super
right.
chicken. And the colours are the same. You know, Holden were having a crack at everything, weren't they?
Well, and using the animals as logos on them, and you had the Subaru.
Super bird.
Super Bird,
Oh,
Ford
they
had
did,
their
yeah.
super things.
Yeah.
I think they were kind of taking the piss a little bit.
A bit
actually.
of a piss week attack
Yeah.
at Ford was doing. I
So
think.
there was the super chicken. That's the one there. Yeah.
Why didn't they do a deal with KFC at the time, like they did with the denim vans?
Was KFC a thing in
You know, they would
'73?
have sold a
it was
stack
before
of them.
my time.
Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Give them away, you know.
So here's the brightest looking customizing idea in years, specially designed for the younger Holden Ute and van customer by GM designers using light mind-bending colours. 8 colours is actually
8.
probably pretty fucking massive in
and
1973.
people would be sitting there going, man, that's wicked.
Yeah, like, whoa, yeah. Interestingly about this, I don't know how many were fitted to cars. And there was,
We laugh, but Mark was probably conceived in the back of a super chicken.
Absolutely.
No, actually, my parents had. I think they had a Chrysler at the time.
Interestingly, they sort of went into that. I don't know how many were fitted.
There was a Chicken Man reference there by Dave, former Triple M radio show. Yeah.
It's everywhere, it's everywhere.
I know, but I never was a fan. But interestingly, they there's a guy that's replicated that. He's got a set of the stickers, but he didn't want to put them on the car because they're like 50 years old or 40 years old or whatever. So he's gone and replicated it, and he's put it on a van, which was equally an option. And I think it rocked up at Summernats or somewhere a couple of years ago, and it just blew people's minds because it was dead stock as well, maybe just with some wheels and that. I don't know if it's online, but it's got the super chicken. And of course, the other one that they had around the same time was the water splash, which I really am having trouble finding online.
Yeah, right.
No,
okay.
that's all right. Well, I want to segue that into a Holden that wasn't a Holden, which was also a HQ Ute.
Water splash. I found the water splash. It's actually the super chicken's way cooler. I don't know if you guys can.
Yeah,
set
it was
that
it
home.
was 2 different stickers options basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is and that again, that's on that I'm just fascinated by cars
Do you know what?
that were
I'm sorry,
photographed.
but that
Wait,
looks
no,
like
no,
they
I was-
took the feather out the arse of the super chicken and just put one feather up.
You might be right, but I'm always fascinated
Tickled
about.
your fancy.
And this is what pisses me off about this whole. And we're not going to touch on this too much, but this whole death of Holden thing, and is that Fisherman's Bend, that design area, there has been so many amazing cars photographed on that turntable, with the bushes in the background, and that's
the roof of the
and it's just
the Salmon
outside
Street.
their design. Yeah, and if you, I don't know, I'm sure it's all still there. If you get onto Google Maps, you can hone down on that and actually see exactly where that is. And I just find it mind blowing.
I was fortunate enough to actually walk out there last year and just go, I'm in this space and how cool is this to be?
absolutely.
Need to
Next-
break in and sneak your car in there and take a
next
photograph.
car.
That'd be cool.
The
Next
Holden
car
that
boxer.
isn't a Holden. I'm going to zoom this up for the screen. Let's see if Rory can.
Whoa.
Oh, you've been telling me about this thing.
Chevrolet
You know
Eldorado.
all about this, Dave.
I know that it's that's a South African assembled, which is not a HQ. It's an AQ, isn't it? If it's South African assembled,
HQ.
it's an AQ. Genuinely,
Comes with built-in diplomatic immunity.
diplomatic immunity. That is an AQ Holden 1-tonner or Chevrolet 1-tonner, and I love them because there's the 1-tonner version, and then there's the fake-ass Ute version that you can see there, where they've just like bent some metal in vaguely the right shape of a Ute and stuck it on the back, which is weird because they got the Constantia Ute as well, which is the
Gentlemen, if you wish to talk about South Africa, you need to get your facts straight. Utes in South Africa are called bakkies.
My apologies.
All right? So don't
Absolutely.
go throwing,
And traffic lights are called robots.
pipikaka in our direction, okay? Or we'll beat you at the rugby again. They are awesome. That looks cool. I mean, all they've done is they've just taken a tried and true platform and gone, yeah, we'll have this. Thank you, Australia.
Yeah, essentially.
You know?
The Constantia was the Kingswood version, I reckon.
Yeah.
And or was it? And there was the Statesman
Statesman
Caprice
version, which got
Monaros
the,
with the twin headlights.
The
and-
metal
Is that what-
grill across
Yeah.
the front of it, which is quite
Yeah,
an
yeah.
interesting looking.
And they're
assembly.
built there. They were built there.
Isn't it really enlightening to see people buying cars back from South Africa,
Yeah.
but not turning them into HK and
Keeping
Monaros,
that,
leaving the commando look on
leaving
them
that
and stuff
look.
like
Commando,
that.
that's right. It was Commando,
Commando,
for
yeah.
the Kingswood and with a K, and then and Constantia was the Statesman Caprice. And I think the
Yeah.
Brougham version prior to that was the Constantia as well.
Yeah.
All right.
a
I
fantastic
think
range.
it's
of
beautiful.
We need
name,
to
I'm saying it.
look at one more car before we end it up. So let's find something really cool. That was, I'm sure
There is
either
so
of the
much
two of you,
coolness.
there's so many cool cars, but something rare and cool.
Well, okay. Well, I can come up with a car,
Jason
guys.
will just
No,
fill the
no,
space
I don't
while
want one of
they're
yours.
shuffling.
May I put a car on the table?
No.
All right. There was one car that was probably resulted in more copying of this vehicle in the period of time it was released, and you can look it up. And it was the Bob Jane T-Mart's Utes, and their wing that went up across the back, and there was a street machine one that had the twin lights and stuff like that.
Anyway,
at the front of
Dave,
it and so forth. It was a black one, and it was in running on empty.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and it had the big wing, and Bob Jane T-Mart had a range of Utes. Obviously, they were, and what they did is
So
they
you're talking
cashed in.
HQ to WV series.
It was HQ to WB, right?
I heard about these.
And they had these wings up off the
So
back.
like the
and they had
blowback wing.
flared guards, and they had you remember the twin grill at the front of them?
Mm-hmm.
And so there was one in Street Machine that was green and black, and all the people watching us screaming and typing, "This is what it is." And Mark, you could probably find it if you
Split
have a hunt
bumper type
around.
thing.
Split bumper type of thing. And it was painted red, white and blue, and it had the chrome wheels, the Bob Jane T-Mart wheels, and they were at every single Bob Jane's parked out the front, because what they did is they symbolised customise your Holden. And at that point in time, with all these show specials coming out, people were coming around saying, "Oh, well, I want that Ute," because it had almost like a Superbird rear wing on the back of the thing. I remember seeing probably half a dozen of them here in South Australia at different
right.
places, and they were highly copied, highly customised vehicles of the day. And it was just an exercise where a company sort of said, well, Holden are doing really well at this point in time with the customised side of things, so we'll jump on board.
Let's get on that
Yeah,
bandwagon.
I've got one actually at home. It looks like that.
Very similar to that.
Very
All
similar to that.
Yeah.
Colin, what do we got next?
Well, you know what? There was a bunch of cars which, funnily enough, not necessarily Holden, but still HSV, and a South Australian icon as well in the Elfin brand of HSVs that were put out there.
Yeah.
You know, small run, but let's think about this: lightweight car, great little sports car, but hashtag LS the world.
Rory to bring it up on screen here.
Yep.
I thought these would take Australia by storm when
And they
came
didn't.
out. They totally didn't.
They did
I think
not.
part of that might have been, and I was a big fan of the Club and MSA, you know, the bodiless one, the Streamliner not so much. But a big problem with them was that you would die savagely if you got them oversteering, because they were like fucking 2 foot long and 4 foot wide.
Well, in 2009, I did the Adelaide 500 rally from the Grampians, I think, through to the racetrack over here, and there was a guy or a couple that had one of these Elfin Clubmans with the LS motor and what have you doing the rally with us, and I felt for those guys the whole trip because it pissed with rain.
Oh, really?
All the way through the Grampians, and we're coming through the state southeast, and it wasn't exactly a pleasant drive. But let me tell you, that car on the track was an absolute bomb. It was crazy how well it went.
There was one sitting
You're
down at
gonna
the
get wet if
Holden
you're not
dealership
moving.
down at Theberton there for a while, and I went in and saw it and had a look at it. And I was very surprised at how small it was, and it was just
tiny.
designed for one thing, to go fast.
Go fast.
Yeah.
But I always heard the rumours were that they were a bit like
Touchy.
a modern day Cobra. Just if you didn't know how to drive it, you were in trouble. And it was also interesting to note that guys like Brock and Lowndes, you never saw them in them.
No.
And it was almost as though they did take a drive and went, yeah, okay, good luck with that.
Pass that.
No,
You know
Brock,
what I mean?
Brock,
Yeah.
Brock did a rally in one. He did the Classic Adelaide, I think, one year in a Streamliner, a little yellow one, and randomly they made a 1:18. I think Beyonce or Classic Collectibles made a replica of that, and they even replicated the Shannon sticker across the bonnet, which wasn't supposed to be there because it wasn't in the right class. But anyway,
Well,
it was
even
great.
still to this day, sitting in the foyer of Holden Design is the yellow Streamliner sitting
Really?
in there.
Yeah.
Next to the Manbo panel van and a couple of other. They're really, really.
I really
cool
thought
cars.
they would go harder than they did. Not figuratively, not literally, but figuratively. Yeah.
If you ever want to get out of one, just break it.
So I reckon we'll wind it down, but I think we'll just go around the table and cancelling out the GTRX because we'll probably all say that. What's your favourite ever model Holden, and if you could own it, would you?
Okay.
We'll start with you, Dave.
You know
Don't
what?
say the Triple Z Gemini.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The Triple Z wind splitters, alloys, brilliant. Look, you know what? I mean, I as much as they've done so many classic models, the most brilliant model that Holden ever made was the VF2. You know, it was the swan song, it was the outro, and it was the one car. Like, because the VF was pretty killer. They addressed all the quality concerns of the VE's interior. You know, they really blitzed it up, obviously for the US market because they're going to sell plenty of them over there.
Got
which
rid
they
of that
kind of
stupid
did.
handbrake.
They got rid of the stupid handbrake. Instead, it goes like this now. But
Now you think it's an electric window and you yank it on,
and
it's interesting.
And I bought one because I wanted one in Regal Peacock, which is the dark green that's amazing and looks constantly dirty in my ownership. But
Hashtag Super Chicken.
Yeah, Super Chicken. Regal Peacock's a level above. But what they did as well was when they did the two, they knew that they were going out, and they just went like, fucking, let's pull out all the stops. It's the one model Holden that uses more fuel than the previous model.
And because the engineers had said that to us at the product launch, they said if your customers are going to complain about fuel consumption, they've bought the wrong car.
Absolutely.
We went into the play shed and put everything into it.
Absolutely. And those LS3, it was LS3s, weren't they? Those LS2s? LS3. I can't remember. There's a badge on the front if anybody needs to check. But
6.2 LS3.
That's right. Okay, those things, like they did a really awesome run of final editions. You know, you get the Magnum, which has been mentioned in the name.
They just cleared out, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
And they put stuff out for the enthusiasts. And my favourite model of all of them is the Reserve Edition because you had to work at Holden to buy one.
So you could get your employee number put onto a build plate, which went on the engine cover. What was your employee number? Do you remember?
1-800 get out.
738002.
Oh, there you go. I wasn't there very long.
All right, Colin.
No, me neither.
Look,
He's going to say
I've been
Walkinshaw.
fortunate. I think I've had in excess of 47 Holdens over the years, and out of them, I've got to say there's a couple of really key favourite ones, but the ultimate desirable, untouchable for me would be Coupe 60. I just look at that car and go, wow, if I could have, that would have been one of the purchase cars because it was just the coolest looking car.
Absolutes.
Well, my mum had the 73 HQ, and that obviously brings back memories. But there's one car that sticks out to me, which was my wife at the moment, because I'm going to have many more.
Why not?
I got a HR Holden, 13s, light brown, the tan interior, 186 with a power glide, and 13s. Again, I mentioned the 13s because they stressed me out. And it was the first car I had after meeting her, and it was the first car I modified whilst I was with her. And it turned out I put 14-inch HQ rims on it, I lowered it, I cleaned it, I detailed all that sort of stuff. And I have a photograph of her back in 1999 standing next to the car, just looking stunning like she does today. If I could have any Holden, I would have, and it had rust in it, but it was just cool.
It was yours.
Yeah, you know what? And I'll try and get the photo to you guys, and you'll probably look at it and say, you know what? That's actually cool when you see it. And it was nothing special, but I have it because it's my Holden story.
And there's a story that went through with it.
It's my Holden story. You know, so that's the one I'd have. Yep.
Talk to us. Basically, Jason's just walked into the most expensive Michelin star restaurant and asked for a meat pie.
Yeah.
But
come on, Monobrow, what do you got?
I think
Gold
for me, no. Well, yeah, I've had two of them actually. I think I'd actually probably one of the VR supercars.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, well, I mean,
the closest road-going version you could get was the GDSR, and that Wang was the mother of all Wangs.
There you go. We've got that one. Up
Here's
on
one you
screen
prepared earlier
Yeah.
in Taxi Yellow.
And interestingly, when they come out new, they were $85,000, and people laughed and went, "Pfft, "No way, those things going to hold their money. It looks like a bloody taxi, mate."
And it's only a throwaway.
Yeah. Well, stroker, but look at them now.
And there was a blueprint option, wasn't there?
Yeah,
it was
there was.
10 grand blueprint option.
Yeah, for the HRT optimised engine.
Sensational.
But it'd be kind of cool to just be open the shed. Oh yeah, just got Lowndes' old supercar. You know,
Given the fact that your arm is the way you are, I understand why you picked a car like that, so people can see you coming, mate, with your driving style. So well done, good choice,
Just
Mark.
a quick stab in there right at the end of the show.
Still drive better than Jason with one arm, regardless.
Don't call you the one-arm bandit for nothing, eh?
Oh, I guess we could go on for hours. There's so many.
Look,
this may even.
There's over
spur on
60 odd years worth of history sitting in what that line does. And one of the things I'm sort of saying to my team out at Peter Page Holden is that we've got to go through these next 7 months holding our heads high and be the pride of the line. We're all red-blooded, and it's sad what's happened today, but there's a whole lot of stuff that generations after us are going to enjoy based on what we are doing as far as holding on to that heritage and shows like this where you're actually giving people a chance to, oh wow, I never heard about that car, and they'll go away, they'll Google it, they'll look it up, and they'll go in and spend some money at the National Motor Museum or what have you. And
there's a Piazza in the National Motor Museum, just for the record. Yeah. So we should people go down and see that.
So quick plug for your VK and what you guys are up
look,
to?
I guess one of my favourites has always been the Commodore, and over the past couple of years, I've run a VK, which we call Shed Spec. It's a play on the SS logo, Shed Spec, because it's made up of shit that we found in the shed, and we use it.
What happens if you got a lisp?
Shed Spec. Jesus, mate, this cracker.
So like, because we're running out of time.
Well, look,
so
Team
basically-
Shed Spec on Facebook. Check us out. We do the Aussie Muscle Car Run each year for the Leukemia Foundation. So this car has done Eastern Creek, it's done Phillip Island, it's done Mallala, the Bend, all the box and dice. And the beauty of it is, it's just bits and pieces that we've had laying around the true Aussie way. We've thrown it together. It looks pretty cool. It does some pretty good times around some of the circuits, and it's driven everywhere we've gone.
Sweet.
Garage of Awesome.
Garage of Awesome. Like me on Facebook and Insta.
Duckface?
No.
All right, so big thanks, guys. Obviously, it's been a pleasure having you guys in to talk about all this cool stuff, and
We could sit here for hours, mate.
we
Thanks
could
for
come
having
back and
us.
do it all over again. So
We certainly could.
Same time next week, we'll be here.
okay,
And
Okay.
that, ladies and
Well.
gentlemen, is done.
Get in, buckle up, and come for a ride with the Hoonatics. Cars, bikes, and anything else with an engine in it. Let's go.